considerations when choosing a market. We're going to talk about how you learn a market and understanding what we call price per square foot in order to analyze the market. It's one of the most important things that we can do in order to understand and analyze a market or the market. And then also we're going to use Trulia.com. It's a public website for that buying and selling houses. And I'm going to show you some ways to use that in order to do the research that you need to, that you're going to learn about when choosing your market. And then of course there's a quiz at the end of this that you're going to need to take just to make sure that your comprehension is there and you understand what we're doing. So to start out here, remember here, this is our blueprint, right? This is our six-figure profit system blueprint, or mind map, or overview of how this works. And again, you are here at the top, right? And your role in this business is to be very strategic. It's to oversee and manage the different aspects of the business, the different what we call departments of the business. And you should be primarily in a very strategic role, only 10% tactical, which is the day-to-day aspects of the business. And so we have our acquisitions on the left. You see this line here on the left is acquisitions. Again, acquisitions is everything to acquire a deal or a contract on a deal. Once we've got that contract on the deal, we decide if we're going to wholesale it or if we're going to keep it and get funding, manage it, market and sell, and fix and flip it, right? So we've got some options here. But before we can do any of this, before we can even worry about setting up our acquisitions department and getting all of this going, finding, analyzing, offering, before we can wholesale, before we even need to worry about managing contractors or funding or any of it, we first need to know what our market is. And remember, in other words, where we're going to be doing this business, which is your market. And remember, this business works per market. So essentially, if whatever market you're in is its own business. And the reason why I say that is because as you expand, as you grow your business, you may decide to open other markets. And just like, McDonald's going into another market, another city, state, town, whatever, you're going to need to create an entirely new model. This model will work independently and in each and every market that you do this in. So we're going to start with one market as you start this business. It's good to get one market up and going and working and efficient. And then from there you can expand and grow by going into new markets or by doing more in your existing market. There's kind of two ways to grow there. And we'll talk more about that later. But the point here is before we can get started, before you can do anything, you need to be able to answer this question, where? Where are you going to be doing that? Now, this idea of a market is really, the definition of that is really just a geographical area to farm for leads and do deals, right? That's your market. It's a geographical area. You can draw it on a circle on a map, or you can grid it out so that you know exactly my market falls within these boundaries. And when it comes to that market, it could be a large metropolitan area, like Las Vegas or Phoenix, where it's a metro area. So it's not maybe just downtown, but it's kind of the surrounding market, the metro area. Could be a regional area like a county, that county comprises of several towns or cities. For example, like Macomb County, Michigan, which has a dozen cities within that county or whatever. It could be a combination. If the market's big enough, it could be like North Phoenix, which is like a specific metropolitan area, or it could be southern Macomb County, so a fraction of that county, not the whole county. But the point is it's a large enough geographical area for you to farm for leads and do deals in. Okay, so let's first talk about the 5 considerations when choosing a market. So when it comes to your market, where you're going to be setting up your business, and again, this is the first thing that we've got to make sure you are very clear on and you know how to make this decision. And it's not just a guess, right? We're going to come to a very logical conclusion as to what is your market. So the 5 considerations are your market location, your market size, your market activity, your market pricing, and your market segmentation. So we're going to spend some time now, almost the remainder of this training, and really go into each of these, and then so you have a very clear vision of how to make this decision. So first is your market location. Now, when it comes to your market location, really what I'm referring here to is either your backyard market, which is what I call it, which is your local market where you live. So wherever you live, your backyard would be right there in the surrounding area where you live. Basically, within a 1-hour drive of where you live, I would consider your backyard market. Now, maybe an hour and a half or whatever, but you know what I mean. It's right there. It's accessible. You can get to it if you need to, and you don't have to jump on a plane or whatever. It's right there in your backyard. And the idea here with a backyard market is you physically and personally see every property. And that's what happens, or that's the temptation anyway, when you have a backyard market. Or the second option is a remote market. Now, a remote market would be not where you live, not your backyard, not within an hour or so driving distance, but a long distance market, maybe even another state that you would have, the only way to get there would be to jump on an airplane. And the idea here is that you're going to do the business virtually where you don't physically and personally see the properties. And so there's a different way of looking at this. There's a completely different mindset. Now remember, the old way to do the business was that you only did your backyard market. That was your only option. Of course you do your backyard market. You do deals where you live and where you're located, because the idea here with the old way is that you must personally see every property, every lead that you go after, right? You don't ever make an offer until you've seen the property yourself in person. And then when you get a deal, you have to personally manage that property. You got to go out there every day, meet contractors and all of that. And so that was kind of the old way. But the new way, the new model in the six-figure profit system is you can do this business in any market in the US remotely. It doesn't have to be your backyard. Now, you may choose for it to be your backyard, and that's fine, but it doesn't have to be. You have options. You really don't personally need to see the properties. And really, if it is in your backyard, you still shouldn't personally see the properties. You don't personally need to manage the properties, even if your market is your backyard. You should be able to live and work anywhere in the world. And even if you're doing your backyard market, I'm going to teach you in the new model how to do that the right way, where you don't have to get sucked into going out and seeing the properties and personally managing them. Okay, so that's the thing there, and so we'll talk some more about that. So the second consideration is market size. Okay, so when it comes to market size here, really what we're talking about is the population of that market, because we need to have a big enough population, and it needs to be a large enough area to have enough leads, right? Because we need to be able to convert leads into deals. So the ideal population, the minimum would be 100,000 population. Now that's kind of on the lowest side possible. If the market is smaller than 100,000, then you're going to want to expand it so that you take in a bigger population. And even 100,000 is pretty skinny. The max is 1 million. Once you get over 1 million, then you also want to segment down or niche out that market geographically so that it's more manageable. And 1 million is kind of more on the high side. So, for example, an ideal market is like Nashville, Tennessee. The city of Nashville is 684,000. And again, real quick, you can just Google whatever market population, and you'll find a recent census report from whatever the last time they did one, and it'll kind of give you an idea of the population. Doesn't need to be exact, just give you an idea that you're in a big enough market. So what a lot of people will do, or one suggestion is, if your market's too small, then you'll want to start to expand out until you pull in enough additional cities to then have a big enough market. So ideally around 500,000 is a really healthy place to be, give or take a little, but you want to kind of be between there, 100,000 and 1 million. And if it's bigger than that, then you're going to want to break it down, and call it North Las Vegas instead of all of Las Vegas or whatever, right? Okay, now the third consideration is your market activity, And I'm going to spend some time on this one to make sure you're really clear on what I mean by market activity. So your market activity, meaning there's really, when you look at a market in real estate, one of the most important things to understand about real estate is it fluctuates up and down, right? So, and that's real estate. It's always doing that. It goes up, it goes down. Markets are hot, markets cool off, markets go stagnant. And so at any point in time, you need to understand what is the market activity that's going on in the market, in that current market today. Is the market going up? Is the market flat? Is the market going down? What is the market doing? Now here's the good news. We can do this business, and we do this business regardless of what the market is doing. I love that about the flipping business. It doesn't matter if it's going up or if it's going down. We just need to adjust accordingly. We need to understand that because our strategy of buying and selling and wholesaling is going to change based on that activity, based on what it's doing. And so these are trends that we want to watch. But a lot of people think that this business only works in a hot market, in an appreciating market, in a market going up. And the reality is no. In fact, I made just as much money when the market was going down in some of my markets than when they're going up. It doesn't matter because we're going to, again, this is a short-term strategy, so we're in, we're out quickly, so it doesn't matter. We're gonna just buy lower and sell lower, or buy higher and sell higher, right? So let's talk about it a little bit. A buyer's market. Now, many of you have heard of that. People talk about it all the time. It's a buyer's market. It's a buyer's market. Well, really, what does that mean? Well, it's when supply or the available properties for sale at any given time exceeds the demand or the number of ready and willing buyers at that time. So a buyer's market is when that supply is higher than the demand. So when there's more houses on the market than there are buyers, and this is any market really, or any business, what happens? Price goes down. So when supply is higher than demand, price goes down, right? Because there's way more houses than there are buyers, so in order to sell your house, you drop the price. And that's what happens in a buyer's market. On the flip side, a seller's market is when demand, or buyers, exceeds supply. So there's more buyers in the market than there is houses. And what happens in a seller's market? Price goes up. Okay, so think, buyer's market, price goes down, seller's market, price goes up. So what is the activity in the market you're considering? Right? What is the market activity in the market you're considering? Or it's a consideration to look at. You know, we've talked about the location of your market. We talked about the size of your market. And this is one of the things that you want to look at in your market to decide. Now, again, this is more so you understand how to approach the market. I want you to understand which one of these it is, but it's not as if it's a seller's market or a buyer's market, you decide yes, do that market, or no, not do that market. Because you'll see here that there's some pros and cons to each of these. So for example here, let me share with you this. Think about your strategy, right, when it comes to flipping. If it's a buyer's market, then there's a lot of available inventory, so it's easy to buy. So acquisitions becomes easier in a buyer's market because there's more foreclosures, prices are going down, there's more available houses to go after, and so price goes down, there's more to get. So it gets easy to find, but because of that same very reason, it's hard to sell because everybody's selling. There's tons of properties to choose from. Buyers can be super picky, and so it's harder to sell. Easier to buy, harder to sell. What about a seller's market? It's the exact opposite. It's hard to buy, hard to find. Acquisitions is harder because everybody's chasing after deals, but it's easy to sell. In a seller's market, if it's a hot market, then you put you do your rehab, you put your property up for sale, and you get 10 showings in the first day, and you get multiple offers, and it goes for over list price. It's easy to sell. Hard to find, easy to sell, seller's market. So, a lot of people don't understand this, and they get into flipping, and they tell me, man, Jerry, I'm having a really hard time finding deals. Well, yeah, it's a seller's market, of course. So you got to put more focus, more emphasis on acquisitions. In a buyer's market, people say to me all the time, well, I've got this great deal, I can't sell it. Well, yeah, because it's easy to buy. Anybody can go buy right now. It's a buyer's market. It's hard to sell. So you got to focus on your exit strategy. You got to be able to create a competitive advantage in the marketplace with your property. you got to make a buyer want to buy your property over the other 27 that are available on the same street. Why would they buy yours over the other ones? Well, you got to create that. You got to stand out above the rest, and you got to have a top-notch rehab and offer different things and include appliances and all kinds of things that you would do differently in a buyer's market. So the reason why this is important, and I want to talk about it right now, is because when choosing your market, know that you need to understand buyer's market, seller's market, how is that going to affect my strategy and what I'm going to do with that market. And the other thing I want to really point out right now is, and what I'm not going to say is today the market is a seller's market or a buyer's market, is because markets change and you need to adjust as it changes. And it doesn't matter what it's doing today. It matters, do you understand how the business works so that you can adjust and recognize when the market's flattening, when the market's turning, when the market's going either down or up, so that you can adjust accordingly. Okay, it's more about the strategy of understanding how markets work. Because right now, you may say, you know what, it's a seller's market in my particular market that I'm looking at, and that's awesome, but it's not going to always be that way. I mean, maybe it will for longer. I mean, we don't know, right? That's real estate. All kinds of factors play a role in what the markets do. But we do know that they go up and down, and they've always gone up and down, and that's just the nature of real estate. That's just economics. So we're going to do one strategy while it's a seller's market. We're going to keep a pulse on it. We're going to understand the activity within our market, and then when the market starts to shift, we're going to shift as well. And we're never going to get caught with our pants down. We're never going to get stuck in bad deals or a strategy that's not working anymore. It's a sinking ship, and we're hanging on for dear life, going down with the ship. Okay, when the Titanic goes down, we're the first ones on a new lifeboat, and we're boarding the new boat. That's how we're going to run this business, and that's part of the value in having a good program and a good mentor. Any real estate program worth its weight in gold should adjust with the market and should not just be, here's what you do, here's how it works, and that's how it is. And that's part of the problem with a lot of real estate programs, and why I'm such a big advocate in this old way versus new way. Because a lot of people are teaching things that used to work that don't work anymore. And just because it worked 5 years ago or 10 years ago or even 6 months ago doesn't mean it's going to work tomorrow. Okay? All right, so enough on that. Let's talk about how to do a little bit of this research. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to show you how to do some of this research and find out what your market activity is. Okay, so what we're going to do here is I'm going to switch over to the internet here, and we're going to go to Trulia.com. And what I want you to do is watch me do it first, and I'll walk through and show you how to do it, and then pause this and you go through and do it. I want to make sure you know where to go and how to do it, and how to look up a market and find this research. Okay, but just to kind of explain it so you can come back to this or have it as a reference, we're going to go to Trulia.com. We're going to put in the search bar the city that we want to research. Once it pulls that up, we're going to click on a tab called Local Scoop, Real Estate Overview and Market Trends. Now I'm going to show you this, so don't worry, but I want to get it on the screen here so you can reference it if you need to. Plus you can watch what I'm about to do as well. So let's now go ahead and do that. I'm going to pause for a second, and then we'll pull up on Trulia. Okay? Okay, so you can see here I'm on Trulia.com. And when you first come to Trulia, you see these different tabs up here at the top. First thing, though, is put in a market. So I went ahead and put in Nashville, Tennessee, and then we're going to go ahead and click Search. Now you can see here it pulls out a map on this side here. These are properties within Nashville, and then it shows them over here on the left-hand side. So if I put my mouse over this particular listing right here, it shows me where it is on the right-hand side. See it over there on the right-hand side on the map. But for now, let's not worry about any of that. What I want you to do, though, is go up here under this Local Scoop. And again, you can see Real Estate Overview. So let me click on that. And this gives you some really good information about the market. Okay, so let's take a look at this tab first, and then there's another one that we can look at, market trends as well. So let's look at this one here. So it's the Nashville real estate market overview, and there's a couple things here that are interesting. The median sales price for all of Nashville is $285. The price per square foot, the average price per square foot is $197. Now, price per square foot is something we're going to spend some time on, and it's really, really important. We're going to use that figure or that tool, I guess, or calculation quite a bit throughout our business model. So it's important you understand what that means. It's basically just saying you take the sold price and you divide it by the square footage to get what's the dollar price per square foot of a property. So really simple, if it's $100 a square foot and it's 2,000 square feet, then it's 200,000 would be your total price. Does that make sense? Okay, so we'll come back to that some more. But basically what this market is telling us, or this research is telling us, is that it's 197 is that price per square foot. Here's your average rental income. And then if I scroll down here, you'll see it shows me this heat map, right, of the market. Okay, so if I, right next to this, explore this area, if I click on this little trends thing, it's going to say, do you want to see data based on listing price, sale price per square foot, which is really cool, and estimates and rentals income. So let's look at sale price. So it creates some heat maps here, and it basically goes from really low to high, right? So it goes from 75,000 up to 1.2 million. And then if you put your mouse over it, let me kind of zoom in a little. There we go. If I put my mouse over it and I just scroll around, you'll see right there it says 37215. That's the zip code. So the median sale price in that zip code is 560. So that's a pretty high-end area zip code, right? And then look, if I go out here, like look at this one, 37218, that zip code has a median sale price of 150,000. So we went from 580 to 150. Right, so you can see there that the market changes quite a bit between those two zip codes. So really anywhere here in the orange is going to be up there in the high numbers, because that, according to our map, our heat map here, that's how it works. So that's looking at, so if I click on this, that's looking at the sale price. If I look at sale price per square foot, then it's going to give me the zip code and the price per square foot. So in 37209, it's got a median sale price of 200. So if I go up here, look at that, it drops to 95. It's just a different way of looking at how the market changes in Nashville. And we'll come to this in a minute. We're going to talk about how to look at the pricing breakdown. Okay, so let's scroll down here and look at a couple of these other trends here. So let's see here, housing trends. So you can see here, look at this. So this is kind of a good one, sales price. So you can see here a year ago, so it gives us a 12-month rolling average. So you can see here what's happened in the past 12 months. The market was here and it's gone like this. So the market in Nashville, if you don't know this, it's on fire right now. It's a seller's market. It's really going up. And you can see price per square foot is kind of following that same trend, right? It's gone from 179 to 197. Here it's gone from 265 to 285 over a 12-month period. So what does that tell us? It tells us it's a seller's market, right? And you can even read this data here. It says average price per square foot for Nashville was 197. It's had an increase of 9% compared to the same period last year. So it's gone up 9%. What if this trend went the other way? Well, that would tell us we're a buyer's market. What if it was flat? Well, it would tell us where the trends are. What are the trends that are going on? Rent, same thing. You can see rent it took a big dip, and now it's kind of gone back up. All right. So, and then there's other things to look at here. You know, income and crime and different things like that. So, but those are the main things you kind of want to look at here. Now let's go look at, let's go back to this. Let's look at listing price. And let's zoom in a little bit here. Let's scoot our map up. So here we've got listing price. So that gives us different numbers to look at what the listing trends are. Okay, so now let's go. Now let's go to under local scoop. We're in Nashville under local scoop market trends. So we click on market trends. And so now it's very similar to the last one we looked at, but now we're going to look at some other things that are going on here. So you can see here, median sales price, got sales price clicked. We're going to go all properties. So you could do some more micro analysis, right? We could look at 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms. But let's just put all properties. Let's change this to 1 year because we don't care. We don't want to look at 5 years. That's too big of a trend. We want to look at, I mean, you could look at 5 years, but let's look at 1 year to kind of see what's going on. And just like we kind of noticed here, went from 260 up to 285, like that was what we just looked at there. But we're looking at a 1 year trend here. Number of sales went from 2105 to 2163. So what do we kind of want to look at here? Remember, it's all about inventory, right? So are there more or less homes for sale? The number of homes has dipped. So you can see here when there's less homes available, like right here, only 1490 at the bottom here of this trend. But if the values are going up, we're creating a seller's market. There's less homes, prices going up because the demand's there. So this kind of confirms what we kind of already knew or we just looked at, which is there's values are going up. Now, according to this, there was a peak in the summer in July, which is kind of typical of most markets because a lot of people sell and move in the summer. You can see this is kind of dropping back. So in August, it's 2163, 2267. So that was kind of the peak. So who knows? We may see kind of a dip here in the number of sales once we get through the summer here. But this price is not showing any sign of going backwards, right? Look at this. The trend is, it's not leveled out really yet. It's still going up. So the demand is strong. And you can even see the increases here based on bedrooms. So based on 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, 4 bedroom, there's been a 7.2% increase. And it gives you a 3-month, 9-month, and 1 year. Okay, so and you can do the same thing with rental income and take a look at that. So, and again, you have these same things here where you're going to look at some of this listing price. Okay, so that's how we do some of that research. So now let's switch back to our presentation. Okay, so before we move on to the next consideration here, I just want to kind of rephrase or kind of review real quickly. Market activity is important to understand so that you know what the trends are in your market. And you understand at this point in the game, we're going to talk primarily about just recognizing or how to recognize the market activity. As we go through the remainder of the business model and all the other facets of the business, I'm going to make sure that I talk to you about the different strategies based on buyer's market or seller's market and how we adjust accordingly. So you'll learn as we go, but you gotta have a solid foundation for when I say a buyer's market, what that means, and when I say a seller's market, what that means. And this is where you do some research to determine that. Okay. All right. So let's move on now to number 4, which is market pricing. Now this will make a little bit of sense to you once we look at this based on what we just did during our research. So what I like to do is break the market down into different price points. Basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different price points. So we have the under 100,000 price point. Now I call this your low income high rental areas. So every market that has an under 100 value price point in a market is usually that low income. It's usually a high rental area. And why? Because a lot of buy and hold investors like that low income because it's high cash flow, right? Because there's high demand for rentals and your acquisition is low. So you have you create a cash flow, positive cash flow. So you see a lot of buy and holds in that under 100,000. And then as you go up, the buy and holds trickle off because you make less money, the more the values of the properties, typically. So the second one is the 100 to 200. Now, 100 to 200 buyers in that market are usually FHA. So what I'm trying to do here is make a correlation between the price point and the type of buyer, okay, in that price point. So 100 to 200 is usually your first time buyers. And the 200 to 300, you have a mix also of first time buyers and your conventional buyers. Conventional is typically your second home buyers, your kind of lower middle class kind of people. They're still getting started, but it might not be their first home, and you get some dual income earners and that sort of thing going on there. But it's about mix because it's the 2 to 300. And then you have your 3 to 500. These are typically your more established conventional buyers, dual income, middle class. And then you get to the 500 to 700. Now you're getting into upper middle class, lower upper class, right? Because the 500 to 700, you're talking more established families. Definitely not first-time buyers anymore. Higher income earning people. And these are jumbo buyers. So jumbo meaning they have to get a special type of loan to buy these because it's over the conventional limit. And now you have to get even more kind of advanced financing called jumbo financing, which is like $417,000 and up typically to even qualify. And then your $700,000 to $1 million. $700,000 to $1 million would be that last. And of course, there's over $1 million. But as far as we're concerned for flipping, these are our different price points where we're going to flip, right? Under 100 and then all the way up to $1 million. Now you can flip over $1 million for sure and get into the 2 million, 3 million, and 5 million market and up. But that's a very specialized niche market, probably outside of our business model. We want to kind of stay within this here, under $1 million for the most part. And even when you get into the 700 to $1 million, you're starting to get fairly specialized. Now, I do have a disclaimer here I want to get out. This pricing here that I've broken down here that you see on the screen, this is for most of your markets across the U.S. So there are some exceptions, obviously, which is your coastal markets like L.A. and San Diego and, the East Coast side as well, on the oceanfront property markets. Any of your like Washington, D.C., New York City, these markets that are just exceptionally high compared to the rest of the nation, this would all scale differently. So for example, in San Diego, your low income isn't under 100, it's probably under 500 is kind of the low income area of San Diego. So you will need to adjust these numbers if you're in one of those outlier markets, like a lot of California and New York City and so on. Okay, so let me show you now how to do this research, how to find out what the market comprises so that you understand how the market's broken down. So let's go back to Trulia and we're going to look at each of these price points. So if I go back to, there it is, if I go back to Trulia, I go to the home there, we're going to look in Nashville. So I put in Nashville. And you can see up here at the top, we've got some filters. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go for the minimum. I'm going to go 10K because I don't want to see rentals. And that's the minimum amount other than 0. So 10K will get rid of the rentals all the way up to 100. So now between 10 and 100 is our price point. And I want to look at, here we go. I want to look at just houses. So I don't want to look at condos and all this. We'll just look at single family. I'm not going to put any kind of filter on bedrooms. And we've got our price point. And then we're going to look at sold. So under the More tab, right here under More, switch it to sold, and sold in the last 9 months. Any bedroom, we're not going to put a filter on square foot or lot size or year built. Yeah, so we're just going to look at those. Now, according to this, in the last 9 months from the date I'm doing this, that you're watching this, it's saying that there were 122 sold properties under 100,000 that are just houses, so we're not looking at condos and other stuff. That 122. So I'm going to go back to my chart here, and I'm going to put 122. Now let's look at 100 to 200. So let's go back. Let's change our filter here to 100 to 200. And between 100 and 200, we're not going to change our other filters. There was 855. So let's put 855. By the way, it's right here. See it right there, 855. And then it shows them all in here and stuff. So there's 855. Let's now go to 200 to 300. And it updates it. There were 1305. So let's put 1305. And let's go back and do 3 to 5. So we're going to change this to 300 to 500. And 300 to 500 has 1207. Let's go put 1207. And let's go back and do 5 to 700. So see what I'm doing? I'm just changing the minimum to 500, the maximum to 700. And it found 409. 409. And then let's do the 7 to a million. So we'll put in here 700 all the way up to 1 million. And there were 230. So 230. Okay, so there, we just did our market research on solds. So let me put up here, 9-month solds. Okay, so we did Nashville, Tennessee, the last 9 months of solds. Here's how it broke down. Okay, so let's look at the data now. So there were 122 solds under 100, 855 between 100 and 200, 1305 between 2 and 3, 1207 between 3 and 5, and 409 between 5 and 7, and 230 between 7 and 1. So clearly the highest volume price point is the 2 to 300. So if someone were to say to me, how's the Nashville market break up? What's the pricing breakdown of Nashville, Tennessee? I would say, well, the market is primarily, the sweet spot is between 2 and 3. Now there's also a pretty high between 3 and 5, but this is a 100,000 search, and this is a 200,000 search. So that's why it's pulling a little bit higher. So by far, the largest price point is between 2 and 3. So there's not a whole lot of activity under 100,000. There's not really a very big market under 100. 100 to 200 jumps up. We're not too bad there. There's quite a bit, almost 1,000, right at 855. Over 1,000 in each of these price points. Huge drop off though from 5 to 7. We dropped down to 409, and then that's about half of what we're up here, and then half again between 7 and 1. Okay, so you'll see as we go through this why this is important to know, but here we now have a good understanding of opportunity. Where is the opportunity? What is the best opportunity? Okay, so we'll come back to that and talk a little bit more about that. But I wanted to show you how to do that. So you should now know how to do your research to know what your market breakdown is. Now the fifth consideration is market segmentation. Market segmentation. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to try to break down for you and help you understand the opportunity based on these different price points within the market. So if you think about it, when it comes to the under 100,000 market price point, opportunity, right? When you do fix and flip, you should be expecting to make between a $10,000 and $20,000 profit in that price point. So if you do a deal and you're under 100,000 is what you sell it for, you buy it, you fix it up, you sell it, you're going to make, if you follow the formula that I prescribe to, you should be making a 20% profit on that flip, putting you at the 10 to 20% or $10,000 to $20,000 price point when you go after deals here. Okay, now if you're wholesaling, that's fix and flip. If you're wholesaling, then you should be making 5 to 10 there. Okay, so again, if you're going to flip in the under 100,000 segment of the market or price point in your market, in let's say in Nashville, then you should make 10 to 20,000 fix and flip, and 5 to 10 wholesaling. So let's look at the rest of it. So let's say we go to the 100 to 200,000. Well, again, you should be making if you do it right, a 20% profit, 20% of sale price. So you're now going to be making 20 to 40,000 on a fix and flip. That's your goal. That's what you should be aiming for. That's what you should make if you hit the numbers. Or a $10 to $15,000 profit if you're wholesaling. Now 200 to 300, you should be making 40 to 60. So see the trend here? The higher up in price, the higher your profit, because it's a percentage of sale price. So again, you're following a 20% profit margin. You should make 40 to 60 when you sell between 2 and 300. Wholesaling, you should be wholesaling for more as well, making 15 to 20. Now the 3 to 5, you should be making 45 to 75 on fix and flip. We do drop our percentage when we get up over 300 or 350 typically, because it's an economies of scale. We're making a percentage, so we can drop down to 15% on our profit margin and still do really well. That's typically what we do. And you should be making a $20,000 to $30,000 wholesale fee when you're wholesaling at that price point. And let's go to the next one. If we go 5 to 700,000, you should be making 75 to 105 on your fix and flip profits at 15%. And wholesaling between 30 and 50. And your highest price point in the market, 7 to $1 million, you should be making 105 to 150 on a fix and flip at 15% profit margin, or 50 to 100 on a wholesale. Pretty sweet, huh? Imagine doing that, wholesaling a deal, making 50 to 100. Pretty cool. So why am I showing you this? Because think about it. When you flip, it's all about the price point you're flipping, on how much money you make. So I see so many people hanging out down here trying to flip and wholesale, which is fine, make 10 to 20 or 5 to 10. But as you go up in price point, you start to make more money. So with this information here, giving available opportunity in the market, what if I were to now take this information and go back here to this? Okay, so here you're going to make 10 to 20 on a fix and flip, 5 to 10 on a wholesale. But in these two price points, let's just take this one, the 100 to, the 200 to 300. How much are you making? Well, the 200 to 300, you're making 40 to 60 instead of 10 to 20. And it's a much healthier price point. It's the highest volume, highest opportunity price point. It's where the majority of sales are happening in that market. It's the sweet spot. Not only is it better to flip here because there's more opportunity, but you make a whole lot more here. You're making 40 to 60 instead of 10 to 20. So this helps you know I've got the most opportunity here, and I've got a really good, healthy profit margin to make there as well. Okay, I hope this is making sense. I'm trying to help you draw conclusions to understanding your market as to where you should be doing the business. Now here's another consideration when it comes to how to segment your market. When it comes to fix and flippers, right? Fix and flip investors, where do they go? Where do they hang out? What kinds of deals are they doing in the given price points? So when it comes to fixing flipping, if you take all of the fix and flippers in the marketplace, now I'm generalizing here, so I'm kind of averaging things here, but where do they do deals? Only 10% do under 100,000. It's not a great place to fix and flip because it's a high rental area. It's buyers have a hard time getting qualified, hard to get appraisals, and not much profit margin. So why would you go there? So some still do, but only 10%. The majority, 50% of all flippers in the market, in most markets all across the country, they all like to do the 100 to 200. So that's where the majority of your competition is. 50% of them are at that price point. And as you go up, look down here at the trends, as you go up in price, you have less competition. The 200 to 300, only 20% are there. The 3 to 5, only 10% are fix and flipping between 300 and 500. And then hardly any fix and flippers do the 5 to 7 and the 7 to 1. Now again, I'm generalizing most markets. You obviously have to scale this if you're in those outlier markets like California, oceanfront in Florida and all of that, right? New York City, Washington, D.C., some of those kind of specialized, super high value markets. But for 90% of the country, this is how it kind of breaks down. Okay, so this is our competition. Okay, so now let's look at the wholesaling. Let's say you're wholesaling properties. Here we looked at fix and flip and kind of where the competition is at, which incidentally, it's interesting. The 200 to 300, you only have 20% of other flippers to compete against, but your profit margins are healthy. And then look at this, at 3 to 5, you have even less. I think you know where I'm going with this. This is kind of your sweet spot in most markets, especially Nashville, because you have a lot of opportunity. It's the highest price point of transactions. You have really good profit margins, right? You're looking now into the 40 to 60 and 60 to 75, right? Between at the 200 to 500, and you have less competition. When you go here and flip, it's tough because you have more flippers that are competing for the same deals. Less competition up here between these two. And these, it's virtually non-existent, but your risk is going up because now you're getting into these higher price markets. So where's the sweet spot? Right there. Now, let's look at a different way of analyzing the market and segmenting our market. When it comes to each of these price points, when you wholesale, who do you wholesale to? Well, you wholesale to either a buy and hold investor or a fix and flip investor, right? You're wholesaling to other investors that are paying cash in your market. So let's look at where these guys hang out. So when you look at the under 100,000, if you were to say, well, of all the available investors I could wholesale to, who are they? Well, 80% of them are going to be buy and hold investors. Maybe 20% of them are going to be fix and flippers. When you go the 100 to 200, you're going to have 80% of them are fix and flippers and only 20% of them are buy and hold. So as you go up, you're going to now wholesale mostly to fix and flippers and less to buy and hold. When you get to the 200 to 300, the majority of them, 90% of them that you're going to wholesale to are going to be fix and flippers. Of the available investors, there's about 10% of them that still do buy and hold between 200 to 300. And then it just keeps going down from there. So 95% of who you're going to wholesale to between 3 and 5 are fix and flippers. Only 5% are buy and hold. When you get to the 5 to 700, it's like 99 to 1, and same with the 7 to 1. Meaning, as you go up in price, you're going to be flipping or wholesaling to more fix and flippers, less buy and hold investors. Now, let's take all of this data, or at least that data we just looked at, and what is the ideal strategy by profit? So you've got these different price points in the market. We're going to be farming for leads in all of these. Okay, it's our market, right? We're going to farm for leads in our market. And we're going to get leads under 100, and we're going to get leads over 700, and everywhere in between. But what do you do with those leads, right? What's your strategy? So if you get a lead under 100,000, what do? The ideal strategy is to wholesale. The ideal strategy is to wholesale that deal, not fix and flip it. That's not a good use of time. All right. What about the next one, this one, the 100 to 200? I think that the ideal strategy is to wholesale. You make 10 to 15, you wholesale there. You don't take those on as fix and flip. The 200 to 300, you could do either one. Now your profit's 40 to 60. To me, that's worth going after those deals. In a lot of cases, you can make an argument that making 40 to 60 on a fix and flip is a good use of time, energy, and effort. But you could also wholesale there. It's a transition area. You could wholesale some. You could fix and flip some. You're going to get 15 to 20. Still a really healthy part of the market. And then what happens when we get to the 3 to 5? Well, remember, for one, wholesaling there gets tougher because we have less fix and flippers, less investors to wholesale to. There's still some out there, and you can still wholesale there. but there's less of them, so it gets a little tougher. But our profit margins are awesome for fix and flip. So those are the ones that I would say are good fix and flips, 3 to 500 price point. And what about 5 to 7? Obviously those ones as well are good fix and flips because it's 75 to 105,000 is your profit, and same with the 7 to a million. These are a little tougher because they're higher price point, more cash to borrow or for funding, a little bit higher end rehabs and stuff, but still manageable. You don't have to really start thinking about doing things a whole lot different until you get up over a million. So of everything we could do here for fix and flip, or even as our like perfect price point market, what is it? It's 3 to 5. The 3 to 500,000 is the sweet spot that I would look for fix and flips. Now everything else you can wholesale. Everything under it you can wholesale. All of these you can wholesale. This one you could fix and flip. It's not bad, making 40 to 60. These two are perfect for wholesaling. Make 5 to 10 or 10 to 15 here. So that's it. The ideal strategy by profit is the 300 to 500,000. So when we go back to our market breakdown in Nashville, for example, that aligns pretty well. It's pretty healthy, both of these. This one's 1305, this one's 1207. It's the highest points in the market. That's telling us that we've got a really healthy volume of sold transactions between 3 and 5 and 2 and 3 as well. But primarily 3 and 5 is when we're looking at. Now, what if it looked different? What if it looked like this? What if it looked like this was reversed? If this was 122 and this was 1205 or whatever. I would say that's a concern because it's a ton of low income, and this is not a good place to fix and flip. Find a wholesale there all day long, but then we don't have very good volume to go after those home run deals that we want to fix and flip. Okay, so remember, we're looking for deals that we can fix and flip, and the rest we wholesale. Okay, so if that were the case, then that would be a sign that that's not the perfect market for us. I would take that into consideration when looking at everything, all 5 considerations. This is a high reward, low risk price point. 3 to 5, it's high reward because there's high profit, and it's low risk because it's a good, healthy volume in the marketplace. At least the example we use with Nashville. It's also the least competitive because there's only 10% of fix and flippers that are up there in the 3 to 5. You'll find that flipping at 3 to 5 is so much easier than flipping at 1 to 2. Because again, 50% of all of our fix and flippers are doing between 100 to 200. It's really competitive there. And it's got a very high profit price point in the market, right? It's the 45 to 75. Okay, so let's now switch gears here and talk a little bit about how to analyze your market based on price per square foot. So when we go back to Trulia, if we go back into the city, we put that in the buy search bar, city. We go to local scoop market trends, and then we're going to look at sale price by zip code. So let's go over and do that now. So if I go back here, I'm going to go to, I'm already in Nashville. Let me just show you how to do that again. So when you first go to Trulia.com, click on this buy, click Nashville, Tennessee, which it's already did because I was just in here, but type in whatever market you're looking at. Then go to local scoop, go down to market trends. Now here in market trends, we're going to click sale price by square foot, sale price per square foot. And then we just kind of zoom into our market a little bit. There we go. So anywhere I move my mouse, it's going to change around the different zip codes all within that Nashville market. So see how the number there, 37205, see how it changes. Okay, now let me teach you and show you why this is valuable and how this works. So first of all, what is price per square foot? So it's the sold price of a property divided by the square footage of the property gives you the sold price per square foot. That's the formula right there. So for example, if the property sold for $200,000 and the square footage of that same property is 200, then that gives you $100 a foot. Meaning if that's the average, if $100 a square foot is the average or median sold price per square foot in that zip code, then it's safe to say you could take any square footage of a property you're looking at, multiply it by that median sold price per square foot, and get your after repair value of that property. So let's take an example here. The average price per square foot is the average of all of the price per square foot of homes in a given area. So then when we go back here, if I look at 37205, that means of all the homes that have sold in that zip code over the past year, because let me put it to 1 year. Let's look at this one. So over the past year, of all of the sold homes in the past year in the zip code 37205, the median sale price is $208 a foot. Okay, is that making sense there? So that's really important because it tells us what the values are of properties we may be looking at, and it gives us a breakdown of how the market's changed. So look at this one right here. Where'd it go? 350. So 37203, zip code 37203, has a median sale price of $350 a foot. So I'm just going to grab my, let me do it real quick here, and grab my calculator, and whoops, where'd it go? Right there, 37203. So if I'm looking at a deal that's 2,000 square feet in that zip code times 350, that's a $700,000 home. It's because I'm taking 2,000 square feet times $350 a foot to give me 700,000. Whereas if I go over here, let me go up here. Look at this one. 37218 is 95. So that a house that's 2,000 square feet in that zip code times 95 is 190,000. So the same square footage home here is worth 190. Down here, it's worth 700. That's real estate, right? Market, or location, right? So that's how we look at that per square foot. Square foot levels the playing field. It makes everything apples to apples. When someone says to me, "Oh, well, homes sell in that area for 300 to 500," that doesn't tell me anything. You tell me it sells for 250 a foot. Now I know what I can look. Now I know what I'm looking at. Now I understand what that means. All right. So does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. We're going to refer to that quite a bit here. So like I gave an example here, 37207 is 120 a square foot. So then again, let's say that we've got a subject property that's 1,800 square feet, and the average sold price in that area, that zip code, is 122. They do it by zip code. So whenever you're looking at this, it's per zip code. That's how they break down the data. So we then can say, well, 1,800 square feet times 122 a foot is 219,600. Is a good rough after repair value based on the market trends, based on the data in that market, in that zip code. Let's take a different one here, or let's take another example here of 2,800 square feet in that same zip code of 37207. So then if I take $122, that's the average sold price per square foot, times 2,800 square feet, that gets me to 341. So that 2,800 square foot home in that area has a value of 341, whereas this 1,800 square foot home in the same market has 219. See how that works? So let's look at another one. 37205 has a value of 207. So if we have 1,800 square foot home in that zip code, 207 times 1,800 is 372. And if we've got a 2,800 square foot home in that same area, then 2,800 times 207 a foot is 579. Really understanding how to do your research by price per square foot is another way of looking at values within a market. When it comes to this choosing your market, right, you want to consider your market location, right? Do you want a backyard market or a remote market? And when choosing your backyard or remote,